North Kent's Whitstable is a recently adopted venue for me, one which I'm now getting to know quite well. This is a catch anything session in late October, not at any noted hotspot, but basically where I could find a parking space along Marine Parade. I'm using my familiar setup of two 15-foot continental rods with braid. The rod that's already been cast out has a standard 3-hook short snood clip down rig with size 4 hooks and lug worm as bait. I'm setting up my second rod with a similar rig but with a lighter lead for searching the ground more. I've arrived an hour and a half before the top of the tide, and before I could set up my second rod I've got an indication on the one that's already out there. Time to drop everything and see what it is. As I'm winding in this fish, I'll run through the locational details, first with regional setting. This part of Kent is beyond the Thames estuary, as is the Tendring Peninsula in Essex, which it faces. It's adjacent to sea salter and not that far from some well-known venues in the Isle of Sheppey. I'll cover the main marks of Whitstable in other videos, but here I'm just homing in on the area of Tankerton Bay that I'm fishing. I've driven up Tower Hill and along Marine Parade and I found a parking spot. This is on top of Tankerton Slopes and close to the beach huts which are between these slopes and Fraser Hill. Fortunately I've parked right by the start of the access path which takes you down to the beach. I'm fishing the bay just to the left of where that path ends. And fish number 1 is a scaldy bass, so not a bad start. I've got freshly dug lugworm in my collapsible bucket and some old stuff in this ice cream tub. In a cool bag is also a little bit of ragworm left over from previous sessions, and I've got some squid just in case, but I'm not likely to be using that. I was hoping for flatfish, but I was half expecting whiting, so I'm reasonably pleased to have opened my account with a scaldy bass, since the whiting have already made their way over to the Isle of Sheppey and the Isle of Grain. I don't mind whiting, but when they're there in numbers it's difficult to get through them to anything else. My first bite came at a fair distance, so I'm clipping down to put it back out there in, hopefully, a similar position. Well, that must have been a good cast, since I didn't even have time to attach my second rig. And it's a similar size schoolie. bait up and attach my second rig and get that one into action before dealing with the lucky one. Since this rig hadn't been out for very long when I got that bite, I'd only need to change one of the hook baits. That bass took the lugworm that was on the middle snood. The wind is from the south, which is offshore, however it's not completely cut out by Tankerton Slopes, so apologies for any wind noise. Well, I shouldn't have been too smug with my previous cast with this rod, since this time the lines got caught round the top rig and the rigs dropped short. However, since casting to the horizon is not always needed, I use this as an opportunity to fish closer in. Quick pan round this part of Tankerton Slopes and the beach huts beyond. The whole of Tankerton Bay has fairly gentle sloping shingle beaches protected by wooden groins all the way up to the skate park. Generally you're fishing onto mudflats with some patches of pebbly shingle. So here are the two rigs I'm mainly using, but I've also set up a 2-hook long snood loop rig that has size 1/0 hooks, and it will be used with double lugworm to try and catch something a bit bigger. Now that's a good little bite on my right hand rod. With braid there's no need to pull hard into the bite. Fish on, but it's another schoolie, this time a bit smaller. and it's still to the rig that's been cast out at distance. It's the top of a tide now, and I've not had any signs fishing closer in, so both are going out at distance. Having cast out, I noticed a swimmer approaching, but it clearly hasn't noticed me. I don't think my line has sunk enough, so I need to wind it back in before the swimmer crosses it. I've only had 3 small bass so far, so a change of tactics is called for. Out comes one of my long snood flapper rigs. These are stored on large diameter EVA foam winders. I normally fish these rigs with flat leads, but I'll be attaching a pyramid lead since the tide has started to pull a bit. The 10-pound snoods have size 2 fine wire hooks. I'm putting on single but large lugworm. So one of the short snood clip down rigs is swapped over for the flapper. casting this rig to what I think is the end of a groin. To complement this change, I decided to change my other short snood rig to the long snood loop rig, and I'll be fishing this one at distance. It's been slow right at the top of the tide, which is often the case at a lot of venues I fish, but now the tide is ebbing, I'm expecting the action to increase. And that's more like it, a proper little knot close in. But it's the smallest one so far. And one to the loop rig, a fish I felt tugging as I was dragging the rig. In an attempt to catch something different, I'm putting double small squid on the bottom snood. That was secured with elastic and a worm on the top snood replaced before casting out. Better sized fish seem further out, so the flapper rig is going further than before. Well, that wasn't of better size, another small schoolie. The loop rig with squid hadn't worked, so I swapped back to the 3-hook clip down rig. The tide is ebbing properly now, and I get a run of those small bass, but nothing to write home about. A couple of better sized fish come off on the way in, but this is still only a small schoolie. The flapper rig has now been replaced by the loop rig, and I'll get a bite on that. Still only a small schoolie on the top snood, with no interest in the squid so far. The squid is now replaced with double lugworm. Pleasant enough day, but no flatfish this time, which is a bit disappointing. Plenty of schoolies, 18 in total, and I was actually expecting whiting, so maybe that's a bit of a bonus.